Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. My name's Luis Jimenez. Before we bring on our co-host, let's pay some bills, shall we? I want to say thank you so much to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes that you hear on the show. Their Bandcamp link is in the description below. I want to also remind you that this show will be available on podcast, both Spotify and iTunes, shortly after the show airs. And you can also be found on the KGRADB.com website and app, so check us out there. I want to remind you also that we have a Patreon. Check out our Patreon. If you want to support the show, Patreon Super Chats are a great way to financially support the show. We are a public access channel. We run off of donations by viewers like you, so we truly appreciate that with all of our heart. And if you can't support in that way, don't worry about it. None of our content is hidden behind a paywall. You can check out all of everything as soon as it comes out right here live every Monday through Wednesday and Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I want to thank our moderators in the chat, Tina Tomaszewski, Aaron Desario, Rodrigo, UFOT. Thank you guys so much for keeping the chat respectful and clean. Don't forget, we have all of our links, including the link to the UCR merch store right down below. Our co-hosts and guests link will be down there as well. So if you really want to follow anybody that you hear on the show, please check them out with the links down below. Also, we have a link to our Discord, which is popping these days. We were having a very interesting conversation today in the Discord. So come check us out on the Discord. It's a really fun place to connect. Right after the show, normally we go to Discord. I'm going to be going on to Sean Rash's channel, and we're going to be joining their NUAP Secrecy live event that's going on right now. So I'll be going on there for about an hour to hang out with them and see what's going on over there. And then last but not least, just want to say thank you to KGRA. And that's it. Let's get on with today's show, shall we? Before we go any further, let's bring on our co-host, Mr. Michael Mataluni, Mr. Rather Be Squinting. Gentlemen, how we doing this fun Friday afternoon?
Doing well.
Fantastic. Great to be here.
Yeah, man. I'm stoked you guys are here. We're going to have a really good show. Our guest isn't here yet, which will be Brandon Fugal. He has confirmed. You know how these billionaires are. They're hard to get. They're hard to nail down. They're hard to get in touch to confirm. But he should be here, hopefully within this 2-hour time block. If not, this is going to be a very interesting show. But we got a $5 donation from the Meat Cutter, starting it off, Jets, with a $5 donation. Thank you so much, Meat Cutter. Truly appreciate it. That gentleman right there is literally the man who kept the Discord alive on what would you say, like life support for a good 3 months while I was ignoring the Discord. And I still am not totally.
You were there today.
I was in there today. Yeah, I mean, I can't be in there every day, but we try to get there every Fridays for an after show. So join us for the after show. Are you guys going to be doing the after show? Or are you guys going to be coming and hanging out with me on Sean Rash's channel today?
Rather?
Yeah,
I'm putting you guys on the spot.
I got a bit of a busy day today. I'll try to hop into the Discord or the show. Play it by ear.
I'll send you guys the link so you guys want to come hang out with me.
Yeah, we're actually headed out of town tomorrow, which is exciting, but trying to get packed up a little bit and prepared. So I might pop in for a minute.
All right, awesome. Well, into which one?
Jesus Christ. Why are we doing this live?
because our guest isn't here yet. We have to delay until he gets here. I mean, what do you want me to do? I mean, look, there's a ton of stuff we could talk about until Brandon Fugal gets here. Primarily, I guess we were talking about it a little bit in the pre-show. So our show just had an interesting moment in our show history. We had one of our interviews. It wasn't tweeted. It wasn't Instagrammed. It wasn't any of these normal. It was TikTok.
We got TikTok.
We got TikToked by a man by the name of Jesse. God, I'm forgetting his last name. Sorry, because he's a new friend to me. His name is not Jesse, Sean Webb, and he shared
mind hacking happiness on TikTok.
Mind hacking happiness on TikTok, and it was the first time that I mean, he's got a ton of followers, and he shared our interview with John Ramirez, and it got us a lot of views in a short amount of time. We got a whole bunch of new faces to the show. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. We got almost 2,000 subscribers from that share, which is just absolutely insane. It was just fun. It was fun for me because that's never happened with our show before. I think the closest thing we had that was like the first Big Phone Home was the most viral thing that's happened to the show. But besides that, somebody sharing our show, then it getting out to a whole bunch of people that had no clue we existed. So that was cool. But it was controversial. He was highlighting some of the wildest things about that conversation, primarily the alien hybrid theory and John Ramirez's belief in and sort of his what would you call him rather?
He might have been overselling it a little bit too. The actual, where these claims came from.
Yeah. You mean John Ramirez was?
Well, both of them. Also, Sean, I think.
Yeah.
TikTok.
Okay. Yeah. What are you gonna say, Mike?
I was just gonna say, ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest in the building.
We do. He just popped in. So let's welcome him, and then we can talk about that another day or whenever. Let's welcome our guest, Mr. Brandon Fugal. Sir, how are you?
Hey, welcome. Greetings.
Welcome to your office. How you doing?
Hey, doing great. It's a whirlwind Friday. Good to patch in with you guys, and anxious to answer any questions, and appreciate all the good work that you're doing. I watch with great amusement all of the many discussions regarding these topics that you're monitoring, and it's a privilege to be on with you.
Hey, man, I really appreciate it. And I got to say, I wanted to start off this conversation because I know we've got questions from our Discord, which we're going to get to. We've got questions from our co-host, which I'm sure we're going to get to. But I wanted to start off the conversation because I thought this was really cool. We had Terrace Matla reach out to us. He was on the show earlier this week with on Known Quantities with Daniel Miller, which is on this network. So check it out every Tuesday. And he said, I mentioned this on Tuesday with Daniel. Brandon's team allowed Chris Bartell and me to come up onto the property in early December to tie up some loose ends related specifically to Chris's photos from 2010 to 2016. It was very fruitful for me as a curator and a scholar, and a testament to him for being fair and generous to researchers who gave a legitimate reason to be there and do the work. I say that because there are some haters out there trying to paint him as some kind of greedy robber baron. He's not anything of the sort. He's beyond respectful and professional to people in all aspects of operating this ranch. And I kind of have to follow that up with just in the last 2 weeks, you and I have had some personal back and forth, and it's been very respectful and honestly took me off guard. I was like, wait a second, you want me to call you at the office while you're working? Like, this is wild. Like, I feel like you're one of the most approachable people in this field. And I mean, when you think of billionaires, you don't think of them as approachable. When you think of real estate professionals, you don't think of them as approachable. And we started talking about some of your personal interests and some of your friends, particularly Jess and the Professor of Rock, because I stumbled onto this episode of Professor of Rock where this guy was interviewing Jess, and I'm like, wait a second, I know that hangar. I know that helicopter. That's Brandon Fugal's hangar. What's going on? So I watched the episode. It was so damn cool. I highly recommend. I'm going to put the link after the show to Professor Rock in the description below. If you're an audiophile, if you like breakdowns of records and bands and people within the music industry, highly recommend checking it out. But the thing that caught my attention with Jess particularly is how he became this legendary voice actor and his family upbringing and his father, and how his father took him to this first audition, basically saying, I'm taking you to this audition because I'm going to show you that you're never going to get everything that you want. And he goes to the audition and gets the part, which made his dad look cool. It was funny. But yeah, I mean, just the openness that you've had with me, I guess, is what I want to emphasize in this opening monologue that I have here for Brandon Fugal. But you've been really cool and super approachable. So I wanted to start there.
No, I appreciate that introduction. Yeah, I've had the privilege of being the executive producer for Professor of Rock, which is really curating, I think, the stories behind the most iconic music, the most iconic songs and artists of really the last decades, with specific, I think, focus on the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so you bringing Adam Reeder, who is my business partner and someone that I'm very proud to be associated with. And he was actually given the name the Professor of Rock by Kenny Loggins, none other than the music icon Kenny Loggins, who's kind of the king of movie soundtracks of the 80s.
Right.
For all of you who are familiar with that era, but and then you have Jess Harnell, who is a dear friend, who is the A-list actor of voice. He's the voice actor, the voice behind, I don't know, over
Animaniacs.
30, yeah, he's over 30 of the top cartoon characters of all time. He also is the voice actor for a lot of people, from Christopher Walken to Arnold Schwarzenegger on down the list, and he's also a rock star. I mean, he has a band called Rock Sugar, and he's just a prolific artist. But it's fun to pull them together, and I'm glad you saw the setting, the hangar, the infamous hangar that we featured on the first episode of the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. That's where we keep the helicopter and the jet stationed, and we also remotely monitor what is happening at the ranch. We have our own remote command center, which has yet to be revealed. You'll see it in the future, but it actually is fully redundant in its monitoring capabilities of all the systems at Skinwalker Ranch. Having that redundancy and all those eyes on the skies and our systems has been an important part of our investigative research and program. It's a key part of my business infrastructure, personal life, and a fun place to host really cool artists. As a child of the 80s, and I've made no secret of this, that on various interviews, I'm highly influenced as a child of the 80s, by Spielberg, George Lucas, James Cameron, Ridley Scott, you name it. And that's evidenced in a lot of the ventures that I'm funding, and some of the childlike curiosity that drives everything, including Skinwalker Ranch and the research that we've been doing into the UFO phenomenon, along with other, I think, associated topics. So it's good to be with you guys, and I'm an open book. I have nothing to hide. As you're finding, I'm transparent to a fault and have no hidden agenda. I don't have any weird agenda or posturing that I do. I'm not that complicated. I like to tell people I'm not smart enough to be running all sorts of scams or conspiracies. I run a very straightforward business, leading the largest commercial real estate enterprise in the Intermountain West. And I like to apply that same discipline and level of professionalism to my other endeavors, including the investigative research out at Skinwalker Ranch and the television series, which is one vehicle. It's a conduit to be able to inform the public and to allow people a peek behind the curtain, and to see what is happening on a very dynamic level with the team. These are not actors. It's so funny. Everyone, with the exception of Travis Taylor, Dr. Taylor, had no television experience, including myself, or any desire to be on any television series. And so this has been an interesting deal. So guess who I've got here? What the hell?
Oh, hey, the dragon's here.
Well, we know you're safe.
Brian, what's happening, pal?
Dragons in the house.
I think it's the first time I've ever
when I
seen
see that you guys are live with Brandon. I'm like, see, I was a facilitator, and now I'm not important anymore.
We've gone past you, Fred. Sorry. I was going to say, this is the first time I've ever seen you without a hat, I think.
I know, I do have hair. See, I'm not bald.
I love it.
Sorry, Mike.
Well, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Just here to wish the boss Merry Christmas and stuff like that. So
yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Dragon in the house.
El Dragonito. Yeah, I love it.
We just acquired a new Jeep for the ranch, and Dragon's been actually helping to get that into service so we can get it out there, because the toll that is taken by all of the equipment, all the UTVs and everything that we deploy out there. I mean, Dragon, we beat that stuff up.
I mean, I'm sure you had to twist the Dragon's arm to be like, hey, you want to work on the new Jeep and make it rugged and stuff?
Yeah.
I'm sure he was all over. Like, that was a real pain in the butt to get him to do that.
Anyway,
he's great.
I had to come crash in. Say, hey, guys.
No, I love it, man. I love it. Dude,
good to see you, brother.
Well, listen, we've got season 3 coming up soon, so you got to come back and hang out, and we'll make fun of the show. We'll have fun with it like we did the last time. I thought it was
right.
a blast.
You guys have gotten too big time for me now. You had to go to the head. So it's all good.
Well, I've got Brandon's phone number now, so I don't need you anymore. I don't need you anymore, Dragon.
You're never getting my phone number.
I was going to say, I'll probably be holding on to your leg when I come visit the ranch.
Like Scooby-Doo. I just had a Scooby-Doo reference there.
Oh, man, I love it. Well, before, I was going to ask you real quick, because the Terminator prop there kind of made me think of it, and you're an 80s kid. I think the most underrated director of the 80s is John McTiernan. These 3 movies right here: Predator, Beverly Hills Cop, and Die Hard. And in 1990, he did The Hunt for Red October. Like, those are insane.
Die Hard is a Christmas movie, by the way.
Yeah, that's the ultimate Christmas movie. In fact, do you guys want to see something? Since you brought James McTiernan out, I'll totally dive into whatever questions you have.
Absolutely, yes. Nerd it up, Brandon.
So check this out. You're not going to believe this.
Hey, Brant, I'm still on your team, buddy. Don't worry.
Yeah, me too.
So here I have.
Yes.
You'll appreciate this. This is a very rare Die Hard movie poster. It was the one with Bruce Willis, which most of the original posters had, Nakatomi Tower?
Yeah.
And because I think Bruce was coming off of, he was still in the middle of a contract with Moonlighting and whatnot. But anyways, this poster is signed by Steven D'Souza, who is the screenwriter for Die Hard. He wrote Die Hard. And I don't know if you can see what he wrote up here in the top, but
we see the scribble, Mike. We can't make it out.
I can read it to you.
Oh, yippee! Okay, I see yippee ki-yay.
Yippee ki-yay, motherfucker.
We're on the radio. We can't hear that famous line.
So I knew that I'd arrived when the screenwriter from Die Hard wrote Brandon yippee ki-yay and so on. I love it. Okay. All right, so pleasantries aside, let's open up. Wow. Let's open up the questions, because I know we've got a ton of them, and we're gonna have a good time. These I'm sure some of them will be tough, but they're all in the spirit of just tough questions.
There we go. Let's fire away. All right,
Bring it on.
Let's start with Rather, because everybody's favorite now is Rather. They think Rather's so tough on our guests and so rude, and he's like the nicest person ever.
I have nothing but nice things to say. I am curious though, Brandon. How would you rank like your interest in UFOs and the paranormal compared to your other, awesome interests like movies and music and all that?
Business is really what I have been most interested in since I was a teenager. I would say 95% of my bandwidth is devoted to business-related pursuits, primarily commercial real estate. The interest in the paranormal, the UFO phenomena, and these topics, although it's interesting and I think it's exciting to delve into these topics, only really comprises a small percentage of my time overall. And I come and go in spurts. You probably noticed online, I'll have like a, stream of consciousness series of texts on Twitter where I'll send out a number of messages where I come up for air and I'm able to respond to people. And then I drop off and I check out for a few days where I have to just focus on business and my, my day-to-day responsibilities. So to be really honest, these things are of interest to me. I love movies, love pop culture. Again, I'm the executive producer, Professor of Rock, which I think is one of the greatest YouTube channels right now that chronicles, the icons of music and pop culture. And I'm obviously into movies and historical artifacts and whatnot. But these topics are down on my list. And I was a skeptic. Not to reiterate what I've stated on other programs and podcasts, but I did buy the ranch as a skeptic. I'd never seen a UFO, a ghost, an orb, or anything of the sort. And I had grown somewhat skeptical of really the players, the people involved with these topics, as well as the topics themselves. And I approached it completely expecting that, there was a 95% chance of a natural explanation for all of these things if we just apply the scientific method and scientific rigor to these topics and the problems set before us.
So real quick, I know you had an experience of your own when you got to the ranch. Would you mind sharing what that experience was?
Yeah, it was 6 months into owning it. So I acquired the ranch the first week of April 2016, proceeded to instrument the property initially with game cameras, motion sensor game cameras, and also working to procure the power and the fiber optic infrastructure to allow us to actually conduct research on a level that I felt was warranted given the claims. Within the first couple of months, my personnel had captured in broad daylight video and photographic images of objects, of unidentified aerial phenomena or UFO objects over the ranch. I still was not really convinced that there was something really that unusual. I mean, Hill Air Force Base and the Utah testing range, which is the largest, I believe, inland test and training range for the Air Force and the Defense Department, is located just west of Salt Lake City here in Utah. And I felt there was most likely some type of covert skunkworks program that was operating within the airspace, and that's why people had seen such a high frequency of activity and sightings of unidentified craft. So the first several months went by. I didn't sense anything unusual on the property. I found the property to be strikingly beautiful. Anyone who's seen Westworld, for example, which is a great series, I think it's on, what is that on? HBO. You could film the first 2 seasons of Westworld on this property. It has everything. It has the old pioneer homesteads, this beautiful Red Rock Mesa with cave systems. It has waterways running, through the property, and it's a strikingly diverse and beautiful backdrop for these tests and the program. But it was 6 months into owning it, October of 2016 to be exact, when I ended up having my own experience, and I shifted from being a healthy skeptic, an open-minded, healthy skeptic, to an experiencer. People ask me all the time, Brandon Fugal, you own the most scientifically studied, property of this type on the planet. Are you a believer now? And I believe the honest answer is no, I'm not a believer. I'm an experiencer. I know that there is reality to these topics. And I've seen it with my own eyes, with multiple witnesses sitting there with me with scientific instrumentation, registering unusual, response to whatever was going on, whether it be elevated RF, gamma, you name it. We've recorded it out at Skinwalker Ranch, and it changed my entire view. And I became much more determined and committed, both financially and emotionally, to getting to the bottom of what is really happening at Skinwalker Ranch and within this field of interest.
Do you mind sharing what exactly you saw?
Yeah, and I've related this on countless podcasts and in interviews, but I saw a flying saucer. It was a 40-foot long, silver grayish disc object that was hovering right over the Mesa Plateau. That, if you've seen the television series, you see the Mesa plays a prominent role in the series as a key feature on the landscape there of the ranch. And it was hovering right above, about 100 feet above the Mesa, right in front of us in broad daylight in the middle of the afternoon. I had multiple witnesses sitting with me who had expressed their skepticism earlier in the day and their belief that there wasn't anything legitimate to the UFO phenomenon, but they were there as security and support for a visiting dignitary. And we sat there, we witnessed the event. I was driving one of those UTVs, the Polaris Ranger, back across the ranch, and the gentleman, one of the security personnel that came for the day, shouted behind me, "Stop the vehicle." And I kind of looked back. I was like, what's going on? He sounded really alarmed. And he was pointing kind of erratically up, ahead of us above the Mesa. And so I brought the vehicle to an abrupt stop and looked to where he was pointing. And sure enough, right there in front of us in broad daylight above the Mesa was this 40, 50 foot long silver grayish disc-like object. And it was just sitting there stationary. And the sun was going down to the west, and you could actually see kind of a little bit of a glint or reflection off of the one side. So it really, by all accounts, mine and the other witnesses, it appeared to be a solid nuts and bolts object. And within 5 seconds, it literally changed position in the blink of an eye from one position to the other, moved probably about 50 feet. And we all were in shock. We said, whoa, how did that, did you see that? And then sure enough, about 5 seconds later, it dropped about the same distance, about 50 feet. Wow. And then a few seconds later, it darted to the right. And then, probably about equal time, 5-7 seconds later, it darted off, and it was like a bullet. It appeared to just go to a dot and just shoot off into the distance like a bullet, and was gone. And the entire event spanned about 20 seconds. We were all in shock, and we had earlier in the day witnessed some unusual things happen with our smartphones. Our phones had all drained mine went from 80% to 0. Shortly before this incident, we'd had some strange things happen earlier in the day that I would call electromagnetic anomalies. We also had a medical episode with the other security personnel that were there that day, and then we had this extraordinary event, this sighting that changed my perspective on these topics forever.
Was it the physics or the nuts and bolts that you saw that made you change your mind about the potential for this being some sort of skunk work? Or like what about the physics made you go, there's no way?
Watching the whole event unfold, it was really extraordinary. I think the nuts and bolts reality of it was something that was game changing to behold. And I think, whatever propulsion physics or advanced physics that was at play. I mean, and it's not just the physics governing how this object was moving. We're talking about electromagnetic anomalies that were occurring, equipment failure, battery drainage, and other things that were happening. People having these strange sensations earlier that same afternoon that defy any conventional explanation that we have yet to come up with. So you combine all of those things. You combine electromagnetic anomalies with acute medical episodes, and then you have multiple credible witnesses simultaneously viewing the same event. And when sequestered an hour or two later by Eric Bard, our scientist, we all three gave the same testimony and the same account of what had happened. I mean, it wasn't something just simply playing with our consciousness. At least I don't believe it was. I think what we were witnessing and visually seeing was something very real.
You said there was a dignitary on property that day. Did the dignitary also see this anomaly?
He was not with us. So it was a doctor, it was a physician that was visiting that day, very prominent physician out of Nevada, Las Vegas, that came up. Then the number one thing on his bucket list, his life bucket list, was to visit the ranch. And he'd inquired years before through Robert Bigelow's people, and had asked to visit and had been turned down on multiple occasions. And he'd reached out to some of my advisors, and I had no problem granting him, access and accompanying him for the day. And so but he was not present for that side. He was actually, I think, with his son, inspecting one of the observation towers surrounded by the politically incorrect term, I guess, for it is bait pen, but those razor wire enclosures that are spread out throughout the ranch for purposes of monitoring, phenomena and using biosensors, animals potentially as biosensors to sense and to get at least some advance warning that something may be approaching the area.
How upset was he when he didn't get to see that?
I was just gonna ask that.
He chuckled. So the thing is, he was an absolute believer, I believe, an experiencer. And when we departed for the ranch earlier in the day, I sat down with him, and I found it interesting that he brought 2 security professionals with him. And I was sitting there with all 3 of them. They had to sign the confidentiality agreement and the liability waiver. I mean, back then, of course, I had no intention of ever revealing my identity as the owner of the ranch. No intention. And I was swearing everyone to secrecy. Everyone had to sign a confidentiality agreement if they were to meet with me or participate with or visit the ranch. And I sat down with them as they were executing the agreements, and we were preparing to depart for the ranch. And I said, "So what do you think?" I told them, I said, I want to prepare you gentlemen for something. I've owned the ranch for 6 months, and I have yet to see anything with my own eyes that I would call unusual. I just find it to be a very strikingly beautiful place and a very unique landscape. But don't think that you're going to come out to the ranch and have an experience, because I haven't had one, and I'm the owner, and I've been visiting, flying in on my helicopter, periodically, I mean, every month for the last 6 months, and have yet to see anything. And it was funny. The 2 security professionals said, we don't believe it. We're not believers. We're skeptics, but we're here to support the doctor. And the doctor just sat back and grinned and chuckled. This was earlier in the day, and said, you guys just don't have a clue. It's real. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to try to convince you. And he just sat back and smiled. Well, later you can imagine the grin on his face when we returned to the command center and related our experience. It was one of those told you so moments where he just looked back, sat back and smiled. And it was a fun exchange.
We have a question here from the audience, and I see your questions, guys. We're going to get to as many of them as possible. Thank you so much for the donations. Akashi Chris, thank you, my lady. She says, besides financial costs, have there been personal costs, e.g. business relationships, church, from people rejecting your involvement with the ranch and any concept of the phenomenon? Love the show, by the way.
Thank you so much. Quick answer. It has been a bit of a distraction. I really do keep the majority of my focus. I mean, I try to keep 95% of my focus on my business obligations and my core activities. But that being said, I think the personal toll, owning this property and being the steward of a place like this comes with responsibility. I think keeping an open mind and being willing to put yourself out there, I mean, it's a risk. I took a great risk when I agreed to the docuseries with the History Channel, and I knew that my life would change dramatically in the future. I found that there are a lot of people in the business community and beyond that are very credible, credentialed, that have had experiences of their own, and they've been waiting for someone to come forward to be a trailblazer, if you will, and to focus not only financial resources, but also their own reputation and time on some of these topics. That you'd be surprised at the number of very credible, credentialed people that have reached out to me from all walks of life, from leading institutions on the planet to some of the fastest growing companies in the nation that have either had experiences or truly believe that there is something going on and are sincere seekers and are anxious to see a lot of the evidence come forward and the truth regarding these topics come forward. And so I found it really enlightening. That's kind of a long-winded answer to, I think, to be determined. I'm not sure. There has been some risk, but I feel like it has been really rewarding. I've met some really incredible people, and this is it's not for the faint of heart. You kind of have to build a thick skin. I wasn't prepared for the public scrutiny, to be honest. I'm still learning every day how to react and how to properly measure the way people are approaching these topics and me, and how to appropriately engage and respond. I think that the skeptics have good reason to be skeptical. The community that surrounds these topics, oftentimes, I think they can be their own worst enemy. And I don't know. It's an interesting time, but you've seen, I quickly, the second that I was invited to be on Mick West's podcast, I jumped at it. I said, no, I have nothing to hide. Yeah. And I jumped on his podcast and answered all the questions that he had, and even invited him personally to come out and engage with the team and meet the team and be part of the investigation if he wished out at the ranch. He politely declined, which I respect. But I've tried to keep a very open, collaborative approach to my stewardship of this very unique property and these topics.
Rather, what do you got?
Well, yeah, thanks for being that trailblazer. We all really appreciate it. One of the things that came out recently was a Stanford scientist, Gary Nolan, who was doing experiments on brains, or doing brain scans on experiencers, particularly experiencers at Skinwalker Ranch, and discovered that a lot of them had kind of unusual brain structure. And he hypothesized that might kind of predispose people to actually seeing and engaging with this phenomenon. I'm wondering if you've heard of that, or if you've engaged with Gary at all, and if that sounds credible to you. Maybe that's why Dragon hasn't seen anything.
Sure. I met Dr. Nolan years before anyone knew that I owned the ranch. I've hosted Dr. Nolan here in Salt Lake City. I have great respect for him. I see him as an advisor to a degree, as someone I trust in the scientific community. The study, the work that he has been engaged in, which does involve some activity at Skinwalker Ranch, I think is important. I think that, I don't know if everyone realizes, to have arguably one of the most credible senior scientists on the planet when it comes to genetics research coming out publicly and acknowledging the reality of these topics. I don't know if that has sunk in yet, or really really made it out there into the public consciousness. I mean, do you guys realize how game-changing that is? This is Gary Nolan. He is the founder of the Nolan Lab at Stanford. It's like game-changing. When in the history of these topics, going back to the 40s, have we ever seen a scientist at this level that has actually founded, some of the leading enterprises involved with biotech, who is a professor, has published, I think, over 300 research papers, and then he comes forward and has the courage to really address these topics and admit that he's been involved with researching these events. Yeah. I think that. Am I wrong? Am I missing something, or is that not a seismic shift?
I think it was my favorite news of 2021, if not the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's important.
So to answer your question, to be very direct, yes, I've hosted Dr. Nolan here in Salt Lake. I consider him a friend. I have great respect for him and look forward to continuing our relationship. I think he's someone to watch and someone to respect in the field.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to hear more from him in the next coming months. What do you got, Michael?
Well, I was just going to say, you have a very healthy respect for skeptics, which I really appreciate. And I think that, your experience was transformative for you. What do you think it's going to take for the general population or folks who are skeptical to come to an understanding like you have without direct contact or experience?
Good question. I think some skeptics, some people simply don't want to know the truth. They can't handle the truth. I think the reality is the majority of the population would just as soon be plugged right back into the matrix, and they don't want to face anything that would challenge their view of reality, their day-to-day 401k, go to Disneyland on an annual basis with the family existence. I think anything that challenges the norm and the standard conventional narrative to a lot of people, it's terrifying. And they're, as much as we'd like to think that people are curious and they want to know the truth and can handle the truth, the reality is people just assume. You remember the character Cypher on Matrix? Was it played by Joe Patiolano? I mean, you'll have to forgive me for butchering his name, but you remember he just said, plug me back. I know this steak isn't real. Yeah. I know this is all essentially a simulation, but it seems to taste good, and plug me back in. And while you're at it, make me someone important, like an actor or something. Remember that scene?
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite scenes, not just from The Matrix, but also from all movies. Yeah, and I think it really does in many ways characterize the way I think the general public views these topics, and skeptics in particular have built up, in some cases, careers. I mean, these are career skeptics that have built their credibility, their reputations, their entire world around defending a certain position. And when that is challenged in any way, it is understandably a very jarring experience. And right. I don't blame them. It's like it, in the religious world, it's like having a faith crisis. I mean, coming to terms with the fact that your faith may in some ways have some challenges. There may be some challenges with, whatever your religious dogma or background is. I think it's no different within the realm of skepticism when it deals with the paranormal.
What do you think about folks like, for me, for example, who, I mean, I had an experience when I was 11. I really don't know what to make of that experience. I'm actually very interested and open-minded to the possibility of, either this interdimensional or extraterrestrial explanation, but I still have no proof. And it's very difficult to kind of wrestle with that because if I can't even prove it to myself, I guess my question really is, there are a lot of people who do want to believe, but they still have a healthy skepticism. where do we go from here? I mean, this is such a deep and interesting topic, but for a lot of us, we need to grab onto something, and it just seems like the more we look, the more difficult it is to find definitive answers. Do you see definitive answers coming down the road?
Sure. I think we've witnessed some of the most definitive answers in history recently, and that the reality associated with the phenomena, and that there is something going on. There is something truly unexplainable that defies any conventional explanation going on. And it's being acknowledged by people from industry, from politics, you name it, from some of our leading institutions. I think that's game changing. Now, if you try to dive deeper and you try to assign cause, if you try to determine or try to make some definitive statement relative to the origin and the agenda associated with what we're seeing, what is being documented and acknowledged, then you end up going down so many rabbit holes and it becomes very murky. I mean, people ask me all the time, Brandon Fugal, I mean, it's no secret now. I'm funding, I think the most, I know this sounds biased and haughty. I don't mean it to sound this way, but I believe that this is the most significant privately funded effort right now that I'm aware of on the planet, addressing these topics. And people ask me, understandably, on a regular basis, do you think it's extraterrestrial? Are we being visited by people from other worlds? Is it interdimensional or multidimensional? Or is it spiritual? Are we dealing with angels and demons? Is this Satan? And the honest answer is it could very well be all of the above. And what we're seeing at Skinwalker Ranch is a diversity, I believe, of agendas, origins. I don't think it's all coming from one place. And I think that there are malevolent and benevolent entities. There are also benign forces involved with what we are documenting. And so I think the discoveries yet to be had are involved with determining the origin and the agenda and what role consciousness plays in all of this.
I am curious. You had touched on now there's now political aspects having this discussion, and we just saw that the NDA both passed in the House and the Senate. And we're going to be having a permanent new office in regards to the UAP phenomenon. So I guess my question is, what does that mean for Skinwalker Ranch? Do you think you'll be contacted by this new office? And if you are contacted and ask permission for them to take a look at it, how far, I guess, would you be willing to go? I mean, do you want to keep this as transparent as you're trying to keep it now? And do you have a fear that if you did invite, a program, say, similar to ATIP or OSAP, come in and do experiments on the ranch, I guess, how would you deal with that? Would you welcome it? Would you be against it?
I don't have any problem briefing the government, briefing the Pentagon on the data, on the ongoing research and the documented material, the events that we continue to see at Skinwalker Ranch. I've mentioned this in the past. I mean, we've given briefings before. All that being said, I have no interest in this being anything other than a private sector enterprise. I don't want to compromise in any way, shape, or form the integrity of our research and our effort. And I think having it remain privately funded, with a multidisciplinary team of professionals and researchers, and bringing in as appropriate third-party experts to engage with various experiments, I think is the way that we're going to get the best results. I don't know about you guys, but my experience with the government is that they're slow. They are incompetent on a lot of levels. If you want something done right, if you want something innovative, it's not, you don't turn to the government typically. No offense to the incredible people within our defense and aerospace sector. I mean, and our science sector. There are some really good people, but let's face it, the government is anything but the model of efficiency or innovation. And I don't expect that we'll see real advancement regarding these topics, from that quarter. I think it's going to come from the private sector.
With that being,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, with that being said, would you or are you working with the Galileo project?
We are not. I don't have any. I don't have anything against working with Dr. Loeb. I have great respect for what he is doing. I would love to work collaboratively. I know that Eric Bard and Dr. Taylor, who run the science program, it's really Eric Bard out at the ranch full time that is the director. I know that he would openly welcome any collaboration and exchange with the Galileo project. I mean, others, for example, Project Hestelin is another that we want to establish, I think, a closer relationship with, to see if there are any patterns, any common aspects associated with what we are observing and documenting that could help us better understand what we are dealing with.
Yeah, Cass, speaking of what we're dealing with, the book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon talked about the hitchhiker effect and even kind of compared it to a biological agent. And I'm curious, have you looked into that angle? Have you investigated and tried to rule out that there might be some alien pathogen or otherwise a biological source to all of this?
Sure. It's a data point. It's a key part of our investigation, and it's part of the
Have you contacted like the CDC or other biological investigators on the range?
No, I don't know that we're dealing with anything on that level. I mean, I'm skeptical that the hitchhiker effect is going to be understood by looking down those paths. There is absolute reality to the fact that we've had team members associated with our investigation. We've had team members that have been followed, that have had the phenomena manifest in their homes and follow them home, sometimes with disturbing consequences and to disturbing effect, mostly negative. It's not like a positive experience for most people when they have certain things follow them. I mean, we've had visitors, as soon as they leave the ranch, their electronics it starts malfunctioning, and they have all sorts of things go haywire in their lives. And it's tough to say. I mean, characterizing it as something that would fall within the CDC's purview, I think, is a huge leap and an assumption that is not necessarily supported by the data.
Well, it was definitely one of the interesting talking points that came up in our Discord today. It was primarily about the releases. Like how would it, if this hitchhiker phenomena happens at the rate that it happens at, and it sounds like it's not like everybody that comes on the ranch, but it seems like a percentage of people that do visit the ranch when they go home are experiencing, like you said, some pretty crazy manifestations.
Well, yeah, they have orbs show up in their homes. They have their intrusions. I mean, their security. They have a home security system. There's home security system on several occasions. We've seen some of our own team members experience disturbing events and not just equipment failures, but manipulation on a level that is disturbing. That's why the advanced physics involved with whatever we are experiencing and interacting with it's humbling. We're dealing with something so advanced that is not only several steps ahead of us, but utilizing technology or physics that is really beyond, I think, anything that we can properly characterize at this time.
So from a production standpoint, how does History Channel protect its workers? And then how do you protect yourself from, say, someone like when we spoke to TJ Allard, he said that when he went home, he was starting to feel some effects to a point where he had to go to the doctor, and his doctor couldn't figure out what was happening. And after a little while, eventually those effects went away. But how do you protect yourself as owner of the ranch if somebody, it turns around and I guess tries to sue you? Do you have protections in these clauses that people sign?
Yeah.
And does the, for example, the History Channel crew, do they have to go through these waivers just like anybody else? And what's specifically in the waiver? Does it protect you? And also, does it protect them from an employer standpoint?
Yes. So to answer your question, anyone who comes on the property has to sign a liability waiver. And with that waiver, they're acknowledging the risks associated with participating in any way, shape, or form with respect to the ranch investigation or even coming on the property. It doesn't matter whether you're a vendor, a visiting guest, or someone like Dr. Taylor, who is stationed there for months at a time and engaging with the team. Everyone has to sign it, even the cameramen, the incredible professionals that have worked on the crew of the docu-series have all had to sign those waivers. And I would say all of them have witnessed, to one degree or another, strange events. Even though people, everyone isn't witnessing a UFO in broad daylight appear above the mesa in front of them, they can all attest to the electromagnetic anomalies. I don't think there's any professional who has come out there as part of an experiment that hasn't witnessed unusual activity or behavior with the equipment, which is a fingerprint, which that electromagnetic signature is really a fingerprint associated with the phenomena. Now, is it associated with the propulsion physics involved? Is it associated with the stealth technology, wormholes or portals opening up? We're trying to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, that was one of the most fascinating parts of the Skinwalker Ranch shows, when they had those, EM spikes, and they kind of showed it on the screen, the graph of it. Would you be open to maybe, releasing that recording of it? Because I would love to, look at that and, try to analyze it myself.
Oh, I could give you all sorts of, that's the funny thing. Everyone screams for data. Show us the data. And I'm like, you guys wouldn't know what to do with the data. What if I gave you X number of terabytes, if I basically, overnighted to you all of the data associated with the just the readings that are coming off of our spectrum analyzers, for example, just the spectrum analyzer data, sifting through that data and being able to separate the signal from the noise, if you will. Good luck. I mean, it's daunting. We have the luxury in the moment of being able to pinpoint correlations that appear, where we have correlative events that occur. But and I'm not meaning to be disrespectful in any way. Please, I understand what you're asking. I understand what people are asking for, but I don't think they understand. Most of the people who are asking for data, they wouldn't know what to do with it. I mean, I could do a big data dump and put that out online right now. But the reality is, unless that data is organized and properly vetted and characterized, it's useless. It's like putting software code, but dumping thousands of hours of camera surveillance footage, coupled with spectrum analyzer data, coupled with seismic and infrasonic data that may be correlating or may not with some of these events, along with our weather station readings. I mean, all of that could, it's helping us better.
I'll throw it out there that the power of crowdsourcing is pretty powerful, and there are a lot of very dedicated people that would love to search through that stuff.
And we're open to that. I think that's something that we want to explore. I think doing a live stream, having the public engaged, having kind of an interactive portal, if you will, that'll bring even more eyes to the skies and more experts to the table to help us better understand and analyze what is happening. I think it's the future. It's something that we want to do. It's a bandwidth issue to a degree, though, as well. I mean, just finding the time and actually organizing that when you're in the midst of trying to line up experiments and you're coordinating with visitors, and it's daunting. And I'm not meaning to come up with a bunch of excuses at all. I just think that people underestimate how complex the process is with actually a truly collaborative effort. But I think that's the future.
Yeah, it's not just dragging the file over to the Google Cloud, I'm guessing.
It's not. And, when we talked to Avi Loeb about this same thing, one of the things that he was very clear about was that he would be releasing all of the data, but it has to be organized, it has to be characterized, and it has to be contextualized. And, just doing a data dump is not necessarily going to give people the answers that they're hoping for, but rather makes a very good point. When you have people out there who have a lot of different skill sets who can help crowdsource, but I, again, also understand the amount of bandwidth you have. That being said, I wanted to shift just a touch.
Well, and one other thing,
I
don't want to interject, but I want to close the loop.
Yeah.
There are so many armchair enthusiasts like screaming for data, or they're questioning our credibility. And I'd love to know what qualifies them to analyze the data that we're gathering. In many cases, as I've dug a little bit deep and I try to ask sincerely, or I'll private message someone. I'll say, hey, you seem sincere. It seems like you really do have some sincere interest in this. And I take your criticism seriously. I do want to open this up. I find that most of these people that are screaming for the data or using that as a crutch they're full of shit. It's just one way. It's their default mechanism for skepticism. Anyways, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, that's all right.
No, I mean, that's interesting you say that. I mean, we could stick here for another second then. So I agree that most of the people asking for raw data would have no idea what to do with it. But obviously, like, there are a lot of people out there who could help you when it comes to crowdsourcing the data. So is it more of a bandwidth issue, or is it more of a, like, where would we even start?
Yeah, well, if this were my full-time job, if I reversed it and let's say 95% of my bandwidth was actually available to focus on the ranch project, and we could actually staff up even more professionals to help Eric Bard and the team, I think that we could accelerate that process and the engagement, and frankly, the dissemination of the very real hard data that we've collected since April of 2016 relative to the ranch. I think it's a legitimate concern, but at the same time, I think it's daunting. It's an overwhelming task. I don't think that people realize how special this docuseries is, as much as I think the criticism relative to the editing process and maybe some of the dramatic music, the thematic music that accompanies the series, can be distracting for some people or undermine the credibility in a lot of people's minds. The fact is, what they're seeing, I mean, they've got 18 episodes right now streaming of data. I mean, these are all data points. When you bring someone on that is a LiDAR expert, that is a recognized expert, world-renowned expert in LiDAR technologies, that brings on his scanning technology to engage with the team, and they experience and record on camera and on the instrumentation anomalies that occur in connection with the ranch investigation that defy any conventional explanation. I think those are important data points. And I would love to delve into that more, because I think it's helping us understand what is happening at the ranch and what makes the ranch such a unique environment, or it's really a living laboratory for really exploring these topics for whatever reason. Sorry for that. I know we got off on a little bit of
That's right.
That's great. So do you think there's an actual threat to this phenomenon, or the multivariate phenomenon that you're experiencing at Skinwalker Ranch? Do you believe there's an actual imminent danger or threat to humanity?
Is there a threat to the team, to the personnel who are involved with our ranch investigation? Hell
no,
yes.
to humanity at large.
Sure. If it's a threat to us on the ranch, why would it not be a threat beyond the borders of the ranch? I mean, again, I keep talking about the advanced physics involved with what we are witnessing and documenting. If for anyone to not look at that as a potential threat, I think is ignorance. I mean, to not look at the unidentified aerial phenomena that we have documented on the property and not see that as a potential threat. And I'm not trying to be a fearmonger by any means. I'm just trying to be real. And when objects can violate our airspace indiscriminately, utilizing technology that can evade, our most advanced fighter pilots, our most advanced tracking systems, that's a national security issue. And it's a damn good thing that the federal government is now finally focusing sincere interest in these areas and not just burying it or dismissing it as not credible. I mean, I think we all need to be sensitive to the potential negative aspects associated with the phenomena. Again, we don't understand it, so any conclusion that can be drawn is it's all speculation at this point. But what we can look at the data, and what does the data suggest? Well, the data suggests that people are having negative experiences. People that come into contact with the phenomena that have close encounter experiences or experiences at the ranch that are unusual or extraordinary on many occasions come away with injuries, and there's real harm done. There are very serious risks associated with this investigation. I can't say that enough. I've witnessed it myself with my own eyes. I have seen it play out, and it's not something to make light of. You probably heard me on other interviews. I mean, we tell everyone that enters the property to enter with a degree of reverence and to prepare themselves spiritually, to armor themselves, to prepare themselves. And no matter what their religious persuasion or belief system is, I think it's important to enter this property with caution and with humility, because we're dealing with forces and entities that we don't understand. But whatever it is, it's a step ahead of us, and it seems to be reflexive in some way, because in several cases, people who bring an adversarial attitude or adversarial kind of nature to the ranch end up having negative experiences.
Mm.
Well, what about Dragon? He seems adversarial. I mean, everything about that man is adversarial. If he's not carrying a gun, I'm like, what's wrong, Dragon?
Well, the phenomena seems to be afraid of Dragon. So, so there's one thing that seems to put it in its place, and for whatever reason, it's Dragon. But the truth is, and you've spoken with Bryant before. Bryant was one of the last people on the team to actually have an experience. I mean, he remained an absolute hardened skeptic with no experience until filming the docuseries. And it was only then that he ended up seeing things with his own eyes that he felt he couldn't unsee. And then he's witnessed as well a lot of the other events happen right there in front of the cameras that defy explanation. But it affects everyone. I think Dragon brings a sincere spirit to the ranch. One of the reasons why I love him so much and I trust him, and he's the head of security, is because we've known each other since we were 19. We were Mormon missionaries together. We served our missions to Hawaii together, and we were companions, and we have a relationship of trust that is deep. And I knew that he was someone that I could trust as my eyes and ears. I mean, to a degree, he's at times my avatar out on the property, keeping careful watch over what is happening. And I trust him to get people out of harm's way if things appear to be unsettled, or if they're seeing equipment readings that would put people at risk.
Right.
You had a follow up?
Well, I was going to ask, what would your advice be to, close family members and stuff like that? Would you recommend they go on the ranch or not?
No, I won't allow my own children out to the property. I don't,
but we can still come, right? We can still come.
I don't think I'm brave enough to go.
People have to be prepared. It's with great caution that I allow anyone on the property. I mean, there are no public tours. I've never taken payment associated with anything personally relative to the ranch. This is not something to be taken lightly, or it's something that we have to prepare people for. This liability waiver is it's important, but it's equally important that people prepare themselves and that they come onto the ranch with the right attitude and the right spirit, and with sincerity, with a level of professionalism that will hopefully help us yield results and yield insight.
Can I ask you this? Throughout recorded history, human beings have been reporting such anomalous phenomenon since, all the way back to the Akashic records of, it written in Sanskrit. Human beings have, as far as we know, never come into any sort of experience where we were having to defend ourselves or fight against this sort of phenomenon. You also mentioned consciousness as potentially having some sort of aspect in relation to this phenomenon. Are you ever concerned about the idea of poking the bear, as it were?
Always. Yeah. I'm always concerned. I every time I go out there, I'm concerned. I'm concerned for my people. We've had so many people that have been injured associated with the investigation. It's sobering when you see people that you love, people that you trust, that you have relationships with, that end up, being in harm's way. There have been times when we've actually had to pull the team together and ask everyone the question, whether we ought to be shutting this down, whether we're better off, ceasing the investigation and really buttoning down the ranch due to the risks associated with what is happening. I mean, there are dark things that have happened there and continue to happen.
What do you got, Rather?
Yeah, you're not convincing me to go. I stay away.
Well,
I don't think you're trying to. But
what's funny is you didn't extend, like the other night you extended an invite to me because my dad lives in Utah. And he's like, hey, if you're out here, come on by. I'd love to give you a tour of the ranch. And I really, when you asked me, I was like, hell yeah. But honestly, I was just sitting there saying to myself, oh, man, I don't know. I don't know if I want to go to this ranch. I don't want to be coming home with anything. I've already had enough bad juju for the last year and a half. I don't need any more in my life.
Yeah, how many people look at that waiver and balk and say, nope?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's again, this is serious. This isn't just made for television. I'm gonna just say it because you're giving me an audience here and you're giving me a platform to be able to make some official statements. I'm gonna go on record once again with the fact that nothing has been contrived, fabricated, or faked relative to what is presented on that docuseries. And that was one of my conditions to the History Channel and Prometheus when we entered into the agreement. Nothing could be manipulated or faked. I didn't want my professional reputation to be called into question as a result of being involved with these topics and with this program. I have so much more at risk. I can't underscore enough how much liability I have relative to my engagement with this series and with these topics. And it's just a reality. That's not me complaining. That's not being me being a wimp or a weakling. I know what I've signed up for.
Yeah.
But I have a lot more to risk, a lot more to lose than to gain associated with these topics. It'd be much easier for me to just focus all the time on more conventional business efforts and other more conventional investment opportunities. But I feel like what we have here could very well be, I believe it is the greatest science project of our time. And I take that seriously, and I take that stewardship seriously.
Quick question from some of the folks in Discord. This one comes from Thoreau. He wanted to ask about batteries draining. One of the things he noticed about the batteries draining, and he was curious about the relationship between the phone batteries and then, like, for example, camera batteries. Have you noticed camera batteries draining as well, or is this something specific to
everything? Every type of battery, every type of device. We've seen it. We've documented everything from damage to equipment being damaged irreparably to batteries being drained of all sorts of different types of different devices. We've seen microphones, different types of microphones, for example, that have been rendered useless on the property. I was just out there with a team of people a week and a half ago, and the equipment, the photographer. So we had this seasoned photographer. He has been a professional photographer for 18 years for one of the biggest media enterprises in Utah. And almost immediately upon entering the property and utilizing his equipment, he started seeing equipment malfunctions happen to an almost laughable. I mean, he just started laughing, cackling out loud. He said he'd never, in 18 years, he had never seen his equipment act like this. I mean, it was uncanny. And I actually had someone else record him and document his equipment malfunctioning, so we would have a record. Again, that's data. That's data, folks. And what is the environment? What is the temperature at that time? What other things may be impacting? What time of day? I mean, is there seismic activity or not? Are other people carrying any unusual devices beyond a Samsung Galaxy or an iPhone on their person that may be having some type of impact on the equipment? You never know. Anyhow, yes, battery drainage constantly, but equipment malfunction and damage is something we contend with constantly. We've had drones literally fly. We've had drones that fall out of the sky and are basically just completely destroyed in the middle of an exercise, in the middle of an experiment, for no reason. And these are not your cheap consumer grade drones. These are thousands of dollars. These are very sophisticated drones on many occasions that have been completely destroyed in the process of trying to document what is happening. And I'm not making this up. I'm not exaggerating this. Anyone who's been involved with this effort will attest to this.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this is something that came up quite a bit in the Discord as well. Aaron Desario asked 2 words: unlocking iPhone. Michael knows what I mean. Basically what he's asking is he's very of the opinion that
Caleb's iPhone,
right? Has this happened to anyone else? Because to bypass the lock screen on an iPhone is it's very, 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 very difficult. So the fact that it happened, and some folks will postulate, well, his iPhone was cracked or it was broken. And so have you guys looked into this more deeply? Like, is there any other data points associated with this iPhone unlocking that we're not aware of?
Well, yeah, let me take it a step further. We've seen the anomalies occur, the strange activity in behavior occur on Caleb's iPhone simultaneous with Thomas Winterton's Samsung Galaxy malfunctioning and being broken into and wigging out, exhibiting all sorts of strange behavior. 2 completely different operating systems, different devices that are exhibiting and all caught on camera at the same time. And then you couple with that the tri-field meter going strange, or let's say an animal that has had something happen. Again, all of these are data points. Eventually it gets to the point where, where correlation, there is some causation associated. I mean, I'm reminded constantly by Eric Bard. He's constantly saying correlation is not causation, Brandon. Just because you're seeing correlating events does not mean that there's something strange or unusual or give credibility to one particular claim. And he's drilled that into my head. I mean, if there is one individual that came onto this property with an absolute skeptical attitude and a laser focus on getting to the bottom of the truth using science and technology, it was Eric Bard. And I've seen him go from being an atheist, if you will, to being an experiencer, and he's just trying to assemble the data. He reserves comment so much, and it is very hesitant to go on record attesting to anything or drawing any conclusion, but he is constantly pointing to the data and to the experiences, which include some really disturbing incidents that have involved him.
Well, I'm going to have to get in your ear and see if we can get Eric Bard on the show, because we'd love to talk to him sometime. He seems like a great person, a great resource to sort of pick the brain of. But
Eric
Poor Dragon.
Well, I know we want nothing to just tell Dragon never to show up ever again.
We love Hey, rather Brandon.
I'll party with Dragon.
I was going to say, Brandon, please tell Dragon that Michael and Rather still love him. Thank you.
I will. Well, hey, you guys, you can see firsthand that was not scripted. I had no idea. He has a key fob to my office. I mean, he is my head of security. I lean on him heavily. I mean, he does oversee a lot of elements of my life, and he's someone who is a trusted advisor and confidant. And so he has access. He can come into my office at midnight, and has, full reign of the place. I was not expecting him to come in, and he really is tasked with trying to get some of the equipment up to speed and frankly continuing to monitor what is happening with Caleb, with Eric, with Thomas. I mean, this is real. I hope that people are starting to see this. This is not made for TV. The television docuseries on the History Channel exists in spite of the fact that we have ongoing investigation and ongoing relationships that are genuine, that are real, that none of this is cooked up for entertainment. It's just our lives. Anyways, hit me with some hard questions.
All right, yeah, so we've got some sort of an AMA from the audience here. We've got a whole bunch of super chat questions that we got to get to.
Can I crack? Let me grab another Diet Mountain Dew.
Yeah, that's what I'm drinking. I'm drinking Diet Mountain Dew too. I swear to God, I got a whole 2-liter. How gross is this?
If I had a key fob to that office, I'd go in at midnight and just look at that T2000 and all those things.
Merry Christmas, Gary Voorhees.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Well, we're gonna get to it. Thank you, Gary. And Gary might have dropped an accidental nugget. Possibly that team might have been on the ranch. Possibly might be on the new season of Skinwalker. Well,
I don't know.
Can you confirm, deny?
I can neither confirm or deny. But
okay.
I will say that that we really are open and collaborative. From day one, I have believed in a collaborative, multidisciplinary approach to the ranch. I'm not afraid of opening things up and actually engaging with people. What I don't like, I don't have any interest. I don't have any interest having someone come on the ranch that is hostile and has an agenda to literally try to disrupt or undermine the credibility. I have no problem being open, honest, and letting someone sit there right with us and engage. But there have been a few people, I won't name names, but there's one person in particular that just seems to have an axe to grind and doesn't care what data I bring forward or what facts I bring forward that call his facts into question. And I have a problem with that. I mean, people can be dangerously dogmatic on both sides of the spectrum, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yes.
And I have no interest in engaging with some zealot on one side of the one extreme side of the spectrum that has no interest in the truth and is just trying to push an agenda. I have no interest. My agenda is the truth. Period.
Well, I was gonna say, if you're a fan of the show, and if you're not, go back and watch our season 2 review of Skinwalker. And look, we had a good time with it. We gave our honest opinions on the show, and Dragon had a thick skin and was able to have fun with it. You've been on the show multiple times since we've done those reviews. So like I opened with the show, you are incredibly approachable. So this idea that you're trying to hide things, to me, is silly. It's just all on how you approach the person. And if you're willing to be cordial, if you're willing to have your heart's in the right place, and you're truly trying to get to the bottom of something, I don't think there's any issue at all with like you said, collaborating with those kinds of people. And
it's okay to disagree. Here's the thing. I don't have any problem with disagreement, with respectful differences of opinion and disagreement. That's what drives the world. And frankly, I love to be challenged. I love to be challenged. I love to hear different points of view and try to address those. I'm learning things every day. And I feel like the only way for us to improve is to get out of our comfort zone and be open to criticism, and to be
also be able to laugh at ourselves a little bit too, right?
Not take yourself so seriously. I mean, it's so funny. And I have great respect for the people that came before me. I often say that we really do stand on the shoulders of giants. I believe those who have came before that had the courage to go public, to put their money where their mouth was, and to explore these topics. You take someone like Robert Bigelow, for example, he's put his money where his mouth is in the past, and I have great respect for him. I'm surprised at the level of deference that people in the past get in the face of 1,000 times more transparency, 1,000 times more data being presented on a constant basis. And people are still kind of going back, digging through a bunch of anecdotal stories in a book. Yeah. When I'm presenting hard data and real time, I mean, we've got multiple professional cameras. We have a professional crew that is stationed there for 4 months at a time, documenting this stuff. And I'm like, and it seems like, and this isn't a criticism, because I love George Knapp, for example. I have great respect for him. I think he's one of the best, most courageous investigative journalists of our time. But I mean, he gets such deference in the book, and a lot of the stuff that has just been regurgitated over and over seems to be given a lot of airtime, and people just either dismiss or marginalize stuff that documented evidence that we're presenting before their very eyes. Anyways, I'll shut up. Go ahead. Let's bring on questions.
All right. So we got about 20 minutes left. So if we can knock these out, that'd be great. So Brandon, did you buy that property that was next to the ranch when it came up for sale earlier this year? It's a question from Brett.
No. Nope.
Okay.
Good question.
Would you be interested? Would you buy property if it came up again? Yeah.
Yeah. If there's a fair value, but if it's a seller just trying to be opportunistic and trying to rip me off, or someone else, because they're capitalizing on the notoriety, I have no interest.
I'm not sure if you've ever gotten a question like this before, but will Fugal do a dab with the weed man? You did have Post Malone on the property, so I guess that's a fair question.
Hey, yeah. Yeah, Post Malone, I consider a friend. I mean, he came out to the ranch, and actually, he was very serious, very very interested in what we were doing. I mean, he and Eric Bard discussed at length the audio, in fact, the infrasonic signatures that we're seeing on the property relative to what dab or whatever that was. I've never drank alcohol. I've never tried alcohol. I've never smoked. I've never gambled. I've kind of stayed away from those things. I haven't even had a Starbucks coffee, so I don't see in my future partaking. But I do.
We do know at some point you used to have regular Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Well, I went to unleaded.
Yeah.
And I'm a total hypocrite. So here's the thing. I don't do moderation very well. And so I do drink about 200 to 300 ounces of diet soda a day, primarily Diet Mountain Dew, which, it is what it is. So there's no judgment for me. I don't care what people do as long as they're nice people and they're good people. Everyone has a different journey in life and, makes different choices. So I don't want to come off self-righteous. I could care less. I actually enjoyed that day that we had Post Malone out there. He took his sponsorship of Bud Light seriously.
All right. Well, God, we got to get you and Post Malone on the show one day. That would be fun.
Yeah, I love him. Carl, what an incredible artist. Carl the Crusher.
Yeah, Carl the Crusher, our friend here, Carl Vibes. Skinwalker team is incredibly good with people and has huge hearts. I cannot wait to go back if ever invited in the gates. Has Brandon experienced out of body or sleep paralysis, or anyone on the team yet experienced anything like that?
That's a good question. I have not. We've had people that have been paralyzed, that have been rendered catatonic on the property, that I have witnessed with my own eyes. I thankfully have not had that. I have had incidents of nausea, vertigo. I've had auditory, effects that I've had, in connection with witnessing certain things that have happened. But thankfully, I haven't had those experiences yet.
What kind of audio effects? I know TJ Allard said that he was hearing old-timey music for months after visiting the ranch.
Not like that. I had one incident, and it was captured on the series. We actually retold it on the docuseries, where I was going to seek out one of the security personnel that came out to the ranch to visit. When I went to try to find him, and I found him completely upright, standing in the back of the UTV, catatonic, completely frozen. As I entered that area and saw him out in the distance standing up, and he must have been there for at least 10 minutes or so in that state, it was as if I entered an anechoic chamber or a soundproof room. All of the ambient noise, if you just cover your ears right now, it's that type of sensation. That's the closest thing that I can describe. And, that occurred for about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and then it dissipated and all of the noise returned. But it was really disturbing. It was interesting. Next question: Are Brandon or his team dealing with the hitchhiker effect today? I'm not, but we've had one or more members of our team that have had to contend with that, and it's serious. It's a little disturbing, and we're trying to figure out what is going on. Another question: When is Brandon going to reunite his 80s techno band Supplicant?
Wait, were you in an 80s techno band?
Yeah.
I was like, this person must have done some killer research here, because this is the first time I've heard of an 80s techno band.
Yeah.
So was it like Devo?
Yeah, Depeche Mode. So my favorite band of all time is Depeche Mode. I think they're the greatest band in the history of music. And growing up as a child of the 80s, I had rock bands that were more fashioned in the style of Journey or Foreigner, and then I kind of graduated to more electronic bands. I was the songwriter and the principal synthesizer keyboardist for a couple of bands, and over a decade ago, back in 2008, 2009, I worked on a dark, seductive techno project that I led called Supplicant, where I wrote, we basically had an album project. You can go to supplicant.com. It's the website. Oh my gosh, it's ancient. I think it still uses Flash, but it's there are 5 music videos that I paid over 6 figures to have produced, along with kind of an epic album. But it was fun. I did it all in secret, and now it's kind of gone public a little bit.
Oh, I love it. Question from Jason Brown: Would Brandon Fugal be happy to invest in the Galileo project if offered?
Sure. You bet. I'd be very interested. I'm really looking forward to meeting the team with Galileo, and I think that there really could be a collaborative effort that would yield results.
Wow, I'll hook you up with Avi today. Like,
Yeah, I actually think that we're going to be speaking at a function in January together next month. So
fantastic.
We'll see.
Well, someone also threw the idea of Skinwalker Ranch NFTs.
There you go.
Now you're speaking his. Do you see how he lit up when you said that? Now we're speaking his language.
Yeah. I'm very, very interested and engaged with Web 3.0 efforts right now. I really think decentralized finance and Web 3.0 is going to be transformative. Our world is going to go through such a transformation in the next months and years. Get ready. Hold on to your shorts.
Agree completely.
I love it. Sorry, I'm looking here for the next super chat question. Give me a second. But I mean, I guess if you could give us really a piece of advice, where would you sort of point us in the direction for the average man to maybe make an impact in this Web3 phase?
Gosh, I'm gonna
give financial advice today.
Yeah, give us some financial advice.
You know what?
You know,
I can give you real estate advice.
Okay.
I've been in the commercial real estate business for over 30 years, and I represent some of the biggest developers and entrepreneurs in the Intermountain West. And I can tell you that commercial real estate, investing in income producing properties, has always been a great vehicle. I think it should be part of any diversified portfolio. The time to people say, well, when's the best time to invest? Well, it was yesterday. I mean, there's a scarcity. They're not making any more property. They're not creating any more dirt. But anyways, yeah. that wasn't a shameless plug. That was just me honestly responding to your investment advice question.
No, that's fine. Anyway, Spaghetti Lee with a $5 question. Would Brandon consider opening Skinwalker Ranch to the public? Allow the community to come on, camp out, see it for themselves?
No, I'm so sorry. And it's not because I'm trying to hoard it or trying to be secretive. There really is a liability risk associated with the ranch. And also we are constantly in the middle of sensitive scientific research and investigation. Anytime you introduce someone into the space, into the property, it has a potentially disruptive effect. It can potentially undermine the investigation to a degree, depending on what experiment is being run at the time. And so we are running a constant series of experiments and monitoring activities that I think we hope to reveal and we continue to document for all of you.
Awesome. G West with a question. Brandon, has any team in other countries contacted you about possible foreign Skinwalker ranches that are showing the same mysteries as your ranch?
Hesdelin, Project Hesdelin is one where we've had some correspondence with, but I think that's probably one of the only examples. I think most places that claim to have this kind of activity, it's very difficult to really, there's not much evidence. That's what makes Skinwalker Ranch so unique. Here you have a piece of property that's been locked down under constant surveillance. I mean, we're talking armed security since 1996 and was part of a Pentagon-funded black budget program for a number of those years. There is no other living laboratory that I'm aware of like this on the planet.
Grant Levac with a question. Love the show. Thank you so much, Grant. You mentioned recently on Twitter that there's a goal to have some of your findings peer reviewed. How is that effort progressing?
We're still in the data gathering stage to a degree. In order to have peer review, you've got to have a complete data set and hopefully an organized kind of documentary effort that can actually be reviewed by experts from various fields. I look forward to that. To a degree, peer review, it's so funny. Again, I hear all these terms all the time. Where's the data? We want more data. We want more peer review. Well, you know what?
Yeah, it takes time.
it not only takes time, but it's not a flawless process. Peer review is still biased. Anyone who thinks that peer review doesn't involve some institutional bias or does not have its failings hasn't done their research into peer review. I mean, there's a reason why, to a degree, you see very little attention given to these topics in scientific journals. And it's not because these topics aren't real or that there isn't reality. It's because there is bias. There is institutional dogmatic bias that has been firmly entrenched for decades. And I think a disinformation campaign. I think there are a number of disinformation agents out there that have been involved just to throw shade.
Yeah. Gonzo with a $5 question. We've seen electric and magnetic properties in the ground there. Could that explain a majority of what goes on there?
Working on it. TBD.
Okay. Robert McEwen says Skinwalker Ranch metaverse. That could be cool.
Working on it. Actually,
I love it.
Truly. I mean, I started exploring, potentially, I think an augmented reality type of approach, which I think was a precursor to a potential metaverse application to the ranch and the investigation, and it's something that I'm exploring.
John Russell says, go ahead.
I probably ought to just a little bit. I've been involved and have been partnered with people that were really the pioneers of augmented and virtual reality experiences, and I think that there's something to be said for having a metaverse approach to the ranch and engaging on that level.
It would be safer, that's for sure. And I mean, we had a killer conversation yesterday on Michael's channel with Ken Bai about the metaverse and sort of what's coming. So there's a lot of potential there, and I could definitely see how that potential could apply to the ranch.
Thank you, John Russell. You're right. Okay.
John Russell said, by the way, for those saying that they've shown no proof, go back and watch every episode. Multiple paranormal UFO events have been caught on camera and documented scientifically.
Oh, have you guys noticed some of the a lot of the people that are critics, when I finally corner them and I say, have you watched the series? They say no.
Oh.
I feel like that is so unfortunate. It's disingenuous to criticize a program or an effort without doing your due diligence. Come on.
Yeah, no, it's like commenting on a TV series that you haven't watched yet. It's like, how do you know
it's a
you
fun
don't like
show.
it's fun. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That is definitely fun. Ryan Sprague, just no question, just $5. Thanks, buddy. We love you.
I love Ryan. Ryan's awesome. I love the research he's doing. He's one of the great voices in this effort.
He's a gem of a man. He actually helped me sort of launch this channel with just coming on and sharing and just being a good person. So strong love for Ryan Sprague.
Yeah, good question from Michael Huntington. Michael Huntington asks, why do you let celebrities and the famous visit your laboratory? Isn't your research environment compromised? That's a really good, legitimate question. The quick knee-jerk answer is why not? Just because someone is a celebrity, does that make them should we dismiss them as someone who may not be credible? With Post Malone, for example, we are not soliciting celebrity interest. So, Michael, good question. I think one thing that I appreciate being given the opportunity to state is I'm not seeking out people to come onto the ranch. I'm not trying to seek popularity or make this a celebrity type of effort. I mean, Post Malone's people, for what it's worth, reached out to me for weeks on end before we finally agreed to have him out. And I feel like being Billboard Artist of the Year for several years and being really probably the leading person in his field makes him uniquely qualified to come out, especially since I think we're seeing an aspect related to the phenomena that deals with frequency, that deals with audio signatures, that why not have, one of the leading people, arguably the number one recording artist on the planet come out.
I mean, honestly, I'm not going to blame you, even if the opposite was true. I got a paranormal ranch. You want to come hang Post Malone? That's cool. Who's going to say no to that?
Yeah, I'd do that.
That's true. But you know what? Michael brings up a good point. And I think it's a fair criticism. It is, once you turn this into a cult of personality, it looks like a publicity stunt, and it really does stand to undermine the credibility of what we're really doing. And I have to be sensitive to that. That being said, I'm a human being. I'm just a guy. I'm a 17-year-old from the 80s stuck in a 48-year-old body.
T1000 sitting behind him, people. The dude is a nerd. If he's gonna get the opportunity to meet somebody because they've got an outside interest. Yeah, but I also appreciate it. You're right. It's a good question. You don't want to undermine sort of what you're trying to do there and make it a show, or a spectacle. You're trying to bring some seriousness to it. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Question here. Who does the ranch handle better? Religious, atheist, or agnostic people? That's a good question. I don't think that the ranch discriminates. I don't think that whatever we're dealing with, I don't think it singles out or responds better or worse to people of any particular faith or belief system. I will say that humility, taking a humble approach and being introspective, and I think having defined spirituality. I mean, that's a can of worms to open up. But I think people who prepare themselves, and come from a position of humility and reverence, seem to have better experiences and seem to have less negative activity on the ranch for whatever reason.
Red Panda Koala, who, by the way, has probably some of the best documentaries on YouTube about the UAP phenomenon. Mr. Fugal, are you still a practicing Mormon? How has experiencing phenomena affected his religious beliefs? Great interview. Thank you.
Good question. Yes, I consider myself an active Latter-day Saint. I'm probably not as active as I should be. I'm very open-minded. Obviously, my people ask me all the time, well, how does your work relative to Skinwalker Ranch and these topics impact your faith? And has that had a negative impact? And I quickly respond with, no, I actually was raised to believe that we're not alone in the universe, that we're part of a divinely constructed and inspired reality and existence. And if anything, I've found, at least for me personally, in my faith journey, I've found a lot of what we have been documenting and experiencing to be faith affirming, and at least pointing to the fact that we're not alone and that we are part of something grander. We're part of a divinely inspired existence, I believe. But I could improve. I need to probably be a better. I've got to make improvements in my life. I've been a little bit of a slacker. I haven't been to church in a while. You've already killed two Diet Mountain Dews in one broadcast.
I know. I think you're way off the rails here, Brandon.
Yeah, I've obviously got a drinking problem. And I was sitting with my mother last night, visiting with her at like 1 a.m. Got in trouble with my wife for being out late, and I was sitting with my mom, and my mom wisely advised. She said, you really need to be a little bit more centered, a little bit more balanced, and get back to church. And so I told her I'd work on it.
All right, so we've only got a couple minutes left here, so if you can answer these next couple questions as quickly as possible, that'd be great. And I appreciate your time and the $100 donation, Gary.
Work with anyone? Okay, I'll hammer through this. Astral projection. I'm familiar with remote viewing and associated phenomena, and yes, that has been part of research that I have funded, that I've been involved in. I was highly skeptical of. I no longer am skeptical. I know it's real. Period.
Okay. And then I think this is the last question, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. The crew triangulated a point above the ranch. Ooh, the triangle, the infamous triangle. There's a point above the ranch where signals are emanating from. The balloon experiment was zapped when sent there. In fact, that weather balloon has never been recovered. completely disappeared. All the equipment that was on that balloon that was actually being monitored from the command center ceased operating, and there is no explanation for what happened with the weather balloon experiment. Rest assured, our investigation of the infamous triangle continues. Stay tuned.
Okay. And then, I think this is the last question here. Does Skinwalker Ranch seem preferentially react to people with prior personality disorders / mental health issues, not the type that causes hallucination, not suggesting that as a cause?
No, I think you have people that, by all accounts, are very stable, very sane, credible people that have had really unusual experiences on the ranch. I'll count myself as one of them. I mean, I've look at my history, my career. I before I went public, just a couple of years ago, what was it? I didn't go public until January, February of 2020, relative to my interest in these topics or my ownership of the ranch. I consider myself credible. I don't have any disorders. I drink too much Diet Mountain Dew, and I'm a workaholic, and I'm probably a little bit more enthusiastic about pop culture than most people. But other than that, I
was going to ask, this is the follow-up question. Have you ever thought about bringing people with special conditions, i.e. autism, Asperger's, Down syndrome?
I think that's a good question. I think, it'd be interesting to see. I do believe in engaging people from a diversity of backgrounds and walks of life, and you never know what different experiencers could help us understand. So, good question.
Well, Brandon, we're out of time. This was awesome, man. I appreciate you taking 2 hours out of your day. I know you're a busy person. I appreciate all the just the personal interaction you and I have had has been wonderful. I think we've had some pretty tough questions, and they've been asked and answered. And I'm sure when you come back, we'll probably have 15 more tough questions for you.
Please do.
But this was an absolute pleasure. I mean, you're one of the coolest nerds that I've interacted with in this arena. So I appreciate you being an open book and having fun and having a thick skin and having a sense of humor and not taking yourself too seriously. Well, I mean, like it's a lot to be said for that.
We're all in this together, and I consider you brothers. I consider you all, fellow enthusiasts and researchers, and I think we all want the truth. I mean, the questions that we're trying to answer have been asked since the beginning of time, right?
Yeah.
So bring on the answers. Let's try to get to the bottom of it, and let's do it together. Let's challenge each other. Let's not be a bunch of wimps. Let's put on our armor and go out there and try to uncover the truth.
You're the man.
Thank you, Brandon. That's great.
All right, Brandon. We'll see you soon, sir. Thank you so much for stopping by, and tell Dragon I do love him.
Hey, I will.
Tell him that only Rather and Michael love him. Luis is no longer a fan. Please. Thank you.
I'm going to tell Dragon you guys were talking trash.
Yeah. Wait, I don't know if Dragon knows, but we're almost at 7,000 followers. We kind of passed the Dragon. You know what I mean? We're so huge now.
I rebuke that statement.
All right, sir. Well,
you guys are great.
Thank you again. We'll see you soon.
Peace
Thanks,
out.
Brandon.
Take care.
You guys, that was awesome. That was awesome. All right, we've only got a minute to outro the show. This is the last live show of this year. I want to wish everybody out there happy holidays. Want to thank everybody for making this year an unbelievable year, both the KGRADB and my co-hosts here, Jane, Aaron, Daniel, everyone on the team, Alex, that has helped this channel reach the goal that it has. It's been an amazing ride. Before we get out of here, I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. I want to remind you guys the show will be available on Patreon, on podcasts, Spotify, iTunes. We have a Patreon. We have the Super Chats. Thank you guys so much for the awesome Super Chat support today. All of these donations go to making the show better, making it happen 5 days a week. So we truly, truly appreciate you guys on that front. And if you can't support on that front, no worries. Nothing's hidden behind a paywall. You guys are more than welcome to enjoy all of the content that we've created for you guys for free. So with all of that said, thank you so much for coming aboard, getting weird with us here on another episode, the last episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review for this new year, or for this old year into the new year. And that's it, you guys. Appreciate it. Stay safe out there. Peace. I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
Thank you.